Good morning, Harris Academy. My name's Mr. Doherty and I'm joined by my co-presenter,
Mr. Rickenberg.
And we are here for our weekly ramble of jogging around the world. Good morning to you, sir. How are you, sir?
I'm good, yeah. I'm actually alright. I'm actually alright, yeah.
Really?
I was a lot this week. There was a lot this week, I think. Again, but it's every single week so far. I think the mocks.
Just can't believe it's Friday again. It just comes around so quick. We've got, how long have we got left now? 3 weeks?
3 weeks.
3 weeks until the end of term.
Yeah, and 2 weeks off and then we go to Italy, so it's going to be good, that.
Yeah,
great.
it's really good.
How are you? Are you good?
Yeah, I'm alright, yeah. Good
Parents'
time.
evening alright?
It was good, yeah.
Talk about it a little bit later. But
yeah, no, I'm good. Just happy it's Friday. Get some things boxed off today and then I'm going to try and have a productive weekend.
yes, exactly. Me too, hopefully. Right, we got your cup, sir, or shall I tell you?
No, you can tell me, it's your round.
I've been there, I actually don't know what coffee it is, can't shout out.
Cafe Latte's the Tesco one, isn't it?
I think so. Yeah, it's big one. It's a big
Pint
one. Yeah, pint of, yeah.
What is this? What is it? We didn't tell them. We didn't tell the listeners.
No, yeah, it's a nice coffee with caramel top today, sir. But yeah,
rocket fuel.
It's pure rocket fuel, isn't it? Yeah. Right. So we will start as normal with our shout outs, sir.
Right. So go on. So this shout out. So go on. We'll go on. Do the first shout out then.
Right. So first shout out is to someone in 7U.
Go on.
A character, let's just put it that way.
Yeah.
But very, very, very enthusiastic about the podcast, and that is Sarjan in 7U.
Nice.
Now, the reason why he is a shout out today is because he got a shout out from his parents to you yesterday on Parents' Evening.
During year 12 Parents' Evening, they Just Kieran's parents said that he was a massive listener on the podcast.
Hello.
And Miss Duffy was like, "Don't start telling them that."
What was I going to say? There was a teacher yesterday, business teacher, young guy. I'm talking about. I'm going to try and find his name. I need to find his name. But the business department as a whole, they're big fans as well. I got told that the rapid urbanisation one was particularly interesting.
Oh, really?
That's what I got told, yeah, from one of the business
department
teachers.
Been listening to our podcast.
Yeah, they love it. I think ever since we gave Mr. Amofa a shout out,
they've been getting involved.
They've been getting involved, yeah. But
because I've heard through the grapevine that the business department are thinking of setting up a podcast.
Are they?
Yeah, I think Mr. Iqbal is. Rumour has
That's
it.
who it was then, Mr. Iqbal. Mr. Iqbal was one who talked to me yesterday.
Yeah, that's it. Apparently he's going to set up a podcast, but apparently he said his was going to be funnier than ours. It's not possible, is it?
Yeah, well, that's getting shut down straight away. Is there any way we can patent the podcast in the school?
Yeah, well, we don't need to worry. We are comic geniuses.
Yeah, we are. Yeah, absolutely. Right, next shout out to Year 11s. Which is why Mr. Dot yesterday late today. But their mocks are done. Mocks finished.
Over.
Come out very positive on Wednesday about their paper 3.
Yeah,
a couple of people say it was easy, and then that makes you a bit uneasy.
That makes me really uneasy when people say things are easy.
But yeah, it's the same mock as the Year 11s did last year for their actual GCSE. So and they come out really positive from that one as well.
I think it's just because the paper 1 and paper 2 are hard. Like they're not easy tests. Like they're not easy papers, and then to paper 3, the setup of it. It's a bit more maybe digestible for them, you know, because it's all there for you. Yeah. So, and I think they underestimate what they know.
Yeah, definitely.
I think they really
because they don't really have to revise anything. They're surprised at how straightforward it is.
They're like, I actually know this. Yeah. I think I think that was a key theme of our parents even yesterday. It's a bit more self-belief that you know you do know it. The kids here work hard.
Yeah, absolutely. And what was I also going to say? Yeah, just a little character drop. I think they're doing a results day sort of thing again.
So that's good.
We have in paper 1 seen improvements, sir.
Oh, brilliant!
Which is very good. We said paper 1 was tricky, and paper 1 is always tricky. But yeah, we've seen improvements, so we're absolutely buzzing with that.
It's good,
really good scores. Some really good scores. You was happy with one of the scores earlier today.
Yeah, I'm not going to name names. That will be. We'll deal with that later on. That's
right, and then over to you, sir. Parents' Evening yesterday. Who did you shout out?
Just everyone that helped Year 12 Parents' Evening. That was. Felt like a bit of a slog last night, Parents' Evening, but I think it's just because the conversations at Year 12 Parents' Evening are different.
Yeah.
Like they're a lot more, they're quite intense, they're a bit longer, there's more to go through, and plus me and Miss Duffy tag teamed it.
Yeah.
So some of them Year 12 sat down and thought, oh no.
Yeah, that's what I get in one.
There was a few squirms in the seats, I won't lie. So Miss Duffy certainly does not mince her words. So no, it was good. Everyone, shout out to everyone. It was Year 12. Year 12 team did really well.
Yeah, I saw Jade and Maria as well on the doors.
Oh, yeah,
green
they
bouncers, and did they come up to see you as well? I'm assuming.
Oh, they did all right. Yeah. It was good. It was a good parents' evening, but a lot of promising discussions.
Good, fantastic. So what we need for the year 12s going into the arguably the biggest and toughest year next year in year 13. When they've got a lot on their plate next year. Right, sir. In honour of this paper one being tricky, and once again one topic in particular not doing as well as we would hope. We're going to talk about distinctive landscapes. We've done our river reading case study on a previous podcast. So today we are going to discuss the Jurassic Coast. Right, you've been there recently?
The Dorset Coast.
The Dorset coastline. How did you? What was your initial reaction to the Dorset coastline?
Loved it.
Beautiful, isn't it?
I thought, do you know what? It was amazing. I was thinking like, it kind of, when is it Chisel Beach, the one with all the stones? So when you're walking up the mound, and I was thinking, when you get to the top of that and it just opens up and it feels like the edge of the world.
Yeah, no, that's really, it's exactly.
And like, I was saying to the kids, I was like, imagine what it must have been like, however many hundreds of years ago, when people were first walking and first saw the sea, or not the ocean, but the sea.
It's the Atlantic Ocean.
Yeah, well, it's the Atlantic Ocean. Yeah, but
there's nothing at that point between you and Brazil.
Yeah, that's what's amazing. Yeah, you can straight to Brazil. It's mad. And I was just like that, just the open expanse of sea and ocean and. They must have it was amazing. Yeah.
So Dorset Coast down in the south-west of England, right? They're called the Jurassic Coast, you know why?
Because there's so many fossils down there.
So many fossils down there, yeah, absolutely.
Did they find that fossil in the, they found a massive one in the cliffs recently, didn't they?
Yeah, it's perfect for fossil hunting. Yeah,
250 million year old fossil.
Yeah, it's a UNESCO World Heritage Site, the Jurassic Coast, so people can't go there, they can't necessarily build on certain parts because they want to keep it as pristine as possible for these fossil hunters, because we don't know what you're going to find underneath there. Right, so southwest of England. First of all, we're going to address today just the I wouldn't say the basics, but like the characteristics of the place, rather than talk about the management of it.
Yeah.
So starting off with the weather and climate, right? So opposite to the River Eden, which is very wet and very cold in the winter, what we've just got in the Jurassic Coast is very warm in the summer and quite dry in the summer. But it's very, very, very wet in the winter, and that's because of the prevailing wind. So where it is in the southwest of England, the prevailing wind is just directly on it, right, coming from the southwest. And as a result of that, what they get is they get a lot of winter storms, because the storms seem to hit that part of the country first, and also as a result of that, they get very, very strong waves, right? So also as a result of them not being so cold, freeze-fall weathering doesn't happen there, right? So we've got to bear that in mind. So you don't get freeze-fall weathering. You get something called salt crystallization, which does the same thing as freeze-fall, but because the water gets into the crack and it's dry, the water evaporates and the salt remains. Yeah. So when that keeps happening, the salt crystal gets bigger and bigger and bigger and cracks the rock apart. Right. So that's the equivalent of freeze-fall weathering there. Okay. So what do you reckon is going to be the impact on the coastline, sir, because of those, say, winter storms and that strong wind and those strong waves?
Huge amounts of erosion.
Huge amounts of erosion, absolutely. And what sort of erosion do you reckon?
Predominantly hydraulic action. Yeah. Abrasion.
Yeah, definitely abrasion. Them too. Also, when you're at Chesil Beach, you realise how smooth the rocks are. So you can tell attrition happens there.
Massive.
Right? And also, when you see the size of the pebbles on Chesil Beach, right, you then realise that these waves have to be strong to be able to transport this material down the coastline.
So when we were there, these guys were fishing, and it really made me laugh because these two guys were fishing on the beach, and then we turned up, 3 separate schools of kids to start measuring the beach profile, looking at all these different things. And what did I say to him? I said, "What are you looking for?" And he went, "For you to leave."
Did he say that?
And I was like, "Oh, fair enough." That was really funny. Yeah. But then he came over and apologised. He was like, "Sorry for being moody." But then he said, "Be careful, because there's a few rogue waves out there today that are coming right up over the bank." Yeah, and he was like, "That's why our fishing stuff's so far back, because there's a few waves that have been coming in and just going straight up and over." So it was quite calm. Yeah. But it's amazing how he was like, "Yeah, you got to be careful." Yeah. So they really are powerful down there.
Especially like when you went in the winter. So some of them winter storms and stuff.
It was icy and it was windy.
Yeah, there's a really good video of those, of like a big storm.
Battering the pub,
and they've got to do close the shutters and stuff like that.
And it was going up and over the pub.
Mad.
Crazy.
Absolutely mad.
Yeah.
Right, so after weather and climate, which we know, just summarise, warm in the summer, so you get salt crystallization, which is a type of mechanical weathering. Yeah. And then you get the winter storms, which is going to increase transportation, and so it's going to increase longshore drift. It's also going to increase erosion through hydraulic action and abrasion. Because you've got to imagine those big strong waves can pick up those rocks from Chesil Beach and launch them at the cliffs. So they're going to be, it's going to be very, 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 very vulnerable. Now, the geology of the coastline. Do you know the difference between a concordant and a discordant coastline, sir?
I do, sir.
What is the difference?
What way the rock is laid.
Yeah. So if it's discordant, is it the same type of rock or different types of rock? Different types of rock. Different. Yeah. So on one side, so where Swanage Bay is, you've got layers of limestone, Portland stone, which is what Durdle Door is made out of. Then you've got layers of clays and sands, which is where Swanage is. Then you've got a band of chalk. So you've actually got 3 different rock types there. So in this case, the Portland stone, the limestone is the hard rock, the clays and sands are the soft rock, and the chalk in this instance also hard rock, but it's not as hard as the limestone. Yeah. Right? Along the concordant coastline, where you've got Lulworth Cove, where you've also got Chesil Beach to an extent, and Durdle Door, that's a discordant coastline. And it's just that very hard band of limestone going across there. Right? So because of that, you've got a very varied landscape, right? So you've got one side of it which faces the Atlantic Ocean, which is pretty stable to some extent, other than Lulworth Cove, where it's been created like that. And then you've got the side of Swanage, where because you've got layers of hard rock and then soft rock in the middle of that clays and sands. What is Swanage in reality?
It's a bay.
It's a bay, exactly. So you've got headlands and bays forming there, and there's a really, really good picture, which I wish I could get up, but if you go on Google Earth, you can find a really good picture of it being of like a drone up in the sky, and you're looking down on Swanage, you can see the bay. And when you're in Swanage, you can tell it's a bay. It's beautiful.
So do the difference of a concordant and discordant.
So concordant coastline, which goes from Old Harry up to a place called, I don't know, I think it's Hengistbury Head, I think it's called, which is concordant, which is, I have to look the wrong way around. No, discordant. And that discordant coastline is different layers of rock. Yeah. Right. So you've got limestone, followed by clays and sands, followed by chalk, and then you've got a concordant coastline, which is a consistent coastline, which has got the same geology, which goes from Old Harry all the way down essentially down to Chesil Beach at the Isle of Portland, which is why it's called Portland Stone.
So with the Concord coastline, are you more likely to have less landforms because the rock's the same type?
Yeah. It depends whatever the geology is.
But if it's a harder rock, it's a bit more resistant to the erosion, whereas a discordant coastline, because you've got different layers of rock with different resistance to erosion, they will then create different landforms.
Absolutely. Yeah. So it all depends on the sort of like the chemical composition of the rock. It depends on the porosity of the rock and stuff like that as well. But yeah, as you said, discordant coastlines, you tend to get bays and headlands being formed. And then along the concordant coastlines, you tend to get like your coves and your stuff like that.
And the headland's an interesting one, because you say like a headland, and then the kids are like, I don't know what you mean. So you know when you've been away or you've been fortunate, you see where you've got the bay where it comes in, that it's the curved beaches where we predominantly go on holiday to them, and then you've got the cliffs sticking out at the end. That's a headland, isn't it? And if you were to stand either end of the headland, you'd be looking out.
Because of the geology and because of, again, what some of the rocks are made out of, so your clays and your sands and stuff, all linking that to the weather and climate. The clays and sands, the cliffs that are made out of clays and sands, when it's really, really wet and really rainy, what can then happen is that the cliffs absorb all of that water and they become very heavy, right? And then, because of the weather and climate, what you get in the winter quite a lot along the Jurassic Coast is mass movement. Yeah. So then the cliffs will collapse, the cliffs will slump under the weight of being really heavy from the weather, in particular in the winter because of the wet nature and the stormy nature of the winter.
So the key terms, because that slumping came up, didn't it? Mass movement. I thought so. A mass movement of a load of sediment essentially falling down.
It's the downwards movement.
So mass movement, downwards movement. They had to include that it was wet because it had absorbed moisture wet and heavy. And then what pulls it down? Gravity.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. Linking to another thing that came up in the paper that didn't particularly go so well for us is the formation of some landforms. So we'll start off, because the Jurassic Coast does have a couple of them, especially again by a place called Hengistbury Head. There's a very famous spit there. We're going to talk about the formation of spits there. Yeah. Right. So what is the main driver of a spit.
Well, longshore drift.
Longshore drift.
So which starts with prevailing winds.
With prevailing winds, and because the prevailing wind of the Jurassic Coast is southwest, and the Jurassic Coast actually quite nicely goes from west to east.
Yeah.
Because it's at an angle, because it's southwest, that means the wind and all the waves are hitting the beach at what we call an oblique angle. So they're hitting it at an angle, basically. Right.
The way I think about longshore drift is, you know, if you ever stand on the sand and you're looking out and the waves come in at your feet, they always go out at a different angle. Or predominantly, very rarely do I stand at if I stood on the beach and they come in and go straight back out again. They're always going out at a slight angle, and that's longshore drift, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it moves the sediment.
So again, the swash comes in, the easiest way to say it, the swash comes in at 45 degrees and gravity pulls the backwash out at 90 degrees. So whatever a point someone, if it's saying a rock, it's come in at 45 degrees, it's then dragged out at 90 degrees, and it comes back in because of the waves at 45 and then back out at 90. So, and that's transportation.
Yeah.
Right? And if you want to be very clever, you can say it's transported either through traction, it's transported either through saltation, suspension, that sort of stuff, right? And then eventually it will just keep going. As long as the wind's blowing, it will keep going, keep going, keep going until it reaches either a deep part of water or it reaches like a natural barrier. If there are no natural barriers, the deposition will continue to occur. But because there's nowhere for it to stop and then be dragged out again, what will happen, the material will just start accumulating at the bottom of the sea or bottom of the ocean. And when that accumulation continues, eventually it will just appear out of the sea, right? And then eventually that accumulation will continue until either it closes like a mouth of a river, or if the wind changes direction, you get something called a recurved edge, I believe, and the spit then changes direction, right? So the most important thing with the formation of a spit is that longshore drift drives it. Swash comes in at 45 degree angle. Gravity pulls the backwash out at 90 degrees, and then there's deposition off the edge of the coastline, right? And then the deposition continues out.
And then there's a build up,
build up of sediment.
Yeah. So how many marks was the spit question? 3.
3. So the most movement was 2.
Longshore drift.
You've got your mark.
Deposition. The degrees at which the backwash and swash come in at.
I'd argue if you mentioned the type of transportation, you probably would have picked up a mark there as well.
Okay, cool. I think that's enough, isn't it? Keep it simple, guys. All
right. And now the formation of, so that will a spit is what we would call a depositional landform. And now we're going to talk about, I think arguably one of my favourite landforms, the headland landforms. So from a crack up to a stump.
I agree. I do think it's wicked. And then when you go to Durdle Door and see it, for those of you who have been, that was my first time going, and I was like, oh yeah, this is cool.
This is cool.
And the kids are like, yeah, it's all right. And you're like, come on.
Yeah, it's like, I would say it's like a pilgrimage for a geography teacher, isn't it? Going to Durdle Door. What do you say? Right. So we've got
walking
steep as well.
Okay, so we start off with this one. So we have our headland.
Right?
So sticking out into the sea.
Yeah, it has to be made out of some sort of resistant rock. So again, we've got chalk. That's somewhat resistant, which is where we get Old Harry. And then we've got limestone, Portland stone. Is where we got Durdle Door. Right. So at some point, a crack will form in the rock.
But like why?
I reckon it's because of abrasion and the rocks have been chucked.
Relentless throwing of rocks against if you stood and threw rocks relentlessly 24 hours a day, 7 days a week against the wall, eventually you're going to crack.
I think they say the average force of a destructive wave is like 30 lorries running, like I think it's at like 40 miles an hour into a brick wall.
Right.
That's the power of the wave.
So you can really see it. And you just mentioned it then. So we've got destructive and constructive waves very quickly. The destructive ones are the big ones.
They're the erosional ones.
The powerful ones, not the ones that trickle in up the beach and down again, so they're clear. So we've got a headland, and what happens is a crack starts to form through hydraulic action and abrasion, which are our two main types of erosion.
And then through hydraulic action, more so now, the crack will then start to widen because the water is going into the crack. The air in there is compressed, which makes it a high pressurized environment, and that pressure then forces something open. Right. It forces the crack wider and wider and wider until we eventually get a cave. Absolutely. because it's a headland.
Yep.
That means there's another side to the headland.
Yeah.
And chances are, through a process called wave refraction, that means that the water is hitting the top of the headland first, and all the waves around it then wrap around.
Yeah.
Right. So they wrap around and they're eroding both sides of the headland. So eventually, through hydraulic action and abrasion against her, the inside of the cave will meet, like the French meeting the English in the Channel Tunnel, and you get that cave then turns into a what?
An arch.
An arch, which you can see straight through.
Straight through.
Yeah, absolutely, you can see straight through. Now, Durdle Door, perfect example of an arch. It's arguably, I reckon there's a case it's the most beautiful arch in the world.
It's got to be.
Got to be.
There are some really nice ones in Portugal, I think.
Yeah.
But
don't touch us, mate.
But yeah, no, it is. No, we'll settle on that. It is the nicest.
Yes. So then the top of the arch, so the actual arch itself, is now almost untouchable by wave processes because the waves can't get up that high, right? So what then starts to happen is weathering starts to happen, right? And if it's a particularly hard stone like limestone, it's mainly going to something like chemical weathering. It's going to have an impact. Freeze thaw here is not going to have an impact
because of the climate.
Yeah. So if we've got a chalk or we've got a limestone, a chemical weathering, if we've got a calcium carbonate, what we're going to get is a process called carbonation.
Yeah.
Which is when either acid, which is when rain, and also because of climate change, acid rains become a little bit more common. We'll just start raining on the arch and just start slowly dissolving it.
Yeah.
Right. And eventually, if there's a big enough event, like a very strong windy, like a storm, probably. If there's a big storm or something like that, what will happen is eventually the arch will collapse.
Right.
Right, and it'll be a very sad day.
Yeah, and eventually that arch will collapse due to carbonation.
Yeah.
And also gravity because it cannot hold its own weight. Yeah, it gets thinner and thinner, and it collapses.
And then we're left
leaving what?
A stack, like old Harry and his wife.
Isn't his wife gone now?
He's had his second wife now.
Right.
Yeah.
That first one didn't work out.
no. Fell to pieces, she did. So it broke to pieces, that would be funny.
Yeah.
But yeah, so you get stacked, and eventually what's going to happen is then the base of the arch is still vulnerable to wave processes, and now you basically just got a tall. So it is a stack.
It's a stack.
Yeah,
it's
a
a
stack
stack of rock.
And then what's going to happen is the wave processes through hydraulic action and abrasion again, maybe solution depending on the type of rock. It's just going to start wearing down at the base of it.
Yeah.
And eventually, timber is going to go.
And then we are left with a stump.
A stump. So which is what Harry's wife is. So.
Yeah, a stump.
Yeah. So if you want to get really high marks, if you're being asked about the Jurassic Coast landforms, then you need to be saying it's made out of Portland stone or limestone, and then
which is our place specific detail.
Place specific detail. Mentioning Durdle Door and stuff is place specific detail as well. Now, if we're talking about the weather and climate against her, because of when do you reckon those erosional sort of like turning from a cave into turning from a cave into an arch? Do you reckon that's going to happen more often in the winter or the summer?
In the winter.
Why?
More storms.
That is how you add complexity to your answer. It's as simple as that. Right?
So just quietly, because it sounds obvious, but we tell the kids all the time, be obvious.
Yeah. Because
that's what we need. That's where the marks are. So this happens more, quite literally, because it's a bit colder, it's stormier, it's windier, the waves are more powerful.
Exactly that. Now that's what was missing, because the question in the mocks was, how does the weather and climate and geology impact geomorphic processes? So this is what we're going to try. This is what we've been trying to do. Saying just keep going back to that. It's very, very wet. It's very stormy in the winter. Yeah. Therefore, the geology won't be able to hold up to that, and the erosional process is going to be more powerful. Things like mass movement is going to happen quite a little bit more often. Yeah. So just things like that, and then you're absolutely fine.
I think we've done pretty well there.
Yeah. Again, talking about, I think we were talking about for a long time. No idea what time we're on.
I've got no idea. Let's
keep going. It's only 2 minutes past 8 though.
Oh, so we're cooking on gas. That's 22 minutes then.
Yeah. Right. The news, sir.
Right.
I will be the news presenter today.
Yeah.
And I'm going to start off with the government is trying to give us a bit more money, sir. So,
do we have to strike for it?
No, I don't think so. Not this time round. Right. So, could argue it's not a political podcast, of course, sir. But you could argue that the government are just trying to hold on to a bit of power considering it's election year. So, when you say this, it doesn't sound very significant at all. But the Jeremy Hunt, the Chancellor, has cut national insurance by 2 pence.
Yeah, 2 pence every pound, isn't
Yeah,
it?
two. So for every £1 you earn, you now have to pay 2 pence less tax on all of those, right? Now, some people, if you earn less than, if you're one of the lower earners in the society, it doesn't affect you. It doesn't impact you at all.
Oh, all right, brilliant.
If you're some of the highest, you'd be surprised to know that it impacts quite a lot positively. But the biggest winners are on the people that are on between £45,000 and £50,000 because of the way the tax brackets work, it could be over £1,000 in the green. There.
It's not bad, is it? So that comes in at what, just under 100 quid a month?
Yeah. So
no, wait, is that right? Yeah. Because I was listening to it and they said you'd be about 400 and something pound better off a year. And you're like,
yeah, that's for some people. Yeah.
Like,
I don't know if that's again after tax, but yeah, they also got rid of something called the non-dom status.
Right.
So if you have all your businesses, say overseas, or you're a resident of somewhere else as well, and then I think if you then marry someone in the country, you don't have to pay tax, depending on how much money you earn, or regardless of how much money you earn. So you could be a multi-billionaire, come to the UK, marry someone, and then because all your assets are in another country, you don't have to pay tax on it, right? They've got rid of that, right? So that hopefully does something. I don't know, again.
Maybe some more tax being paid by people and can filter down to the rest of the society.
Yes, exactly.
Because this is a geography podcast.
What was interesting though, people normally absolutely love tax cuts, but everyone was actually quite angry at those tax cuts because they want more public spending.
Yes.
Because the thing is that you can give us all the money you want, but if we don't have a doctor's surgery to go to, for example,
or the healthcare system's creaking.
Yeah, and so is the education. Doesn't help that we're going on strike all the time, but
no.
But I just thought it was an interesting thing to bring up, just to try and sort of
because it's big news at the minute. The budget's massive news.
And again, some people don't necessarily understand what's going on there. Right, next one is yesterday. The USA politics is heating up as well at the moment.
Big time.
Yesterday was called the State of the Union Address.
Right.
And President Biden has announced that the US are going to build a temporary port, basically building a pier in Gaza to be able to help aid get in.
Right, interesting.
Apparently they're trying to work around Israel because they've said that there'll be no boots on the ground from American troops into Gaza. So I'm guessing they'll be hovering above it or something like that, so they don't actually put their boots down.
It's very interesting how they're going to be able to build a port without actually anyone touching it.
Yeah, and apparently it's going to be built in weeks, apparently. Really quick. Yeah,
and interesting. Yeah. So, and the main aim is to get aid into Gaza.
Get aid into Gaza.
Because the situation there, as we have pretty much mentioned every week, just seems to be getting more and more desperate.
And the last news article is of the island it's the country of Haiti.
Interesting.
Which is the least developed country in the Western Hemisphere. And do you want to tell us what's happened, sir?
So it's been going on for a long time. It's basically what's happened. The capital is called Port-au-Prince, and it is now run by gangs.
Yeah, the city is, isn't it? They're not in charge yet.
Not in charge, but it's. I was reading something the other day where it's one of the first times ever where groups of gangs are actually in control.
Yeah.
And like they've said, so there's a guy called Barbecue what a name. There's rumours why he's got his name, but apparently his actual reason is why it's because his mum owned like a fried chicken stall when he was a kid. So he's always been called that. So we'll go with that.
Yeah, that would be my excuse.
And he's basically he's doing interviews with like The Guardian and Sky. He's not got his face covered. But he's there, submachine gun, bulletproof vest on, and he's like to the Prime Minister, if you don't resign in 6 days, we're going to start a civil war. And what they've done is they've freed all the freed lots of high-profile prisoners because they have control of the city now, so they've got control of the prisons. But I think the bottom line of the message is it's like a Robin Hood type thing. It's like, look, we haven't got any money. The poor people of this country aren't receiving anything from the government, so we're taking matters quite literally taking the law into their own hands. So it's but this has been going on for quite a while. But the last couple of days, it's really, really hotted up, and it's one to be keeping an eye on. The reason also is the Year 8s are about to talk about Haiti. Yeah. Some schools talk about Haiti for the earthquake. We talk about it. We're currently talking about it with Year 12 in migration, because due to the links with Brazil. So it really does actually feed through into quite a few of our lessons.
Yeah, it does say Haiti gangs torch police stations as PM's future hangs in balance. What's also interesting, they've got, for the 11 million people, they've got 10,000 police officers. That's it.
and like there is going to be corruption, and it's been the countries, the stuff that country's had to deal with. Not only has it to deal with like massive amounts of corruption and violence and colonisation and all that sort of stuff, it's also like really badly impacted by natural disasters, isn't it?
Yeah, this one is terribly located. It's got it gets cyclones, it gets earthquakes, and some of those earthquakes can be quite powerful. Okay, news done.
Weather.
Not
so
fact
forecast.
first.
Oh yeah, fact first. Good. Because
fact first or weather forecast?
No, Miss Duffy gets a shout out.
Yeah, right. Just want to thank all one person for replying to the question that I had yesterday.
That was
last week.
Wild.
That was wild, and he even said, "I'm not going to ruin it." And
did he say that?
Yeah, he's not going to ruin it. So the answer was what?
Question was.
The question was Mount Everest, not the highest peak on planet Earth. What is? And the answer is Mauna Kea. And the point of that is that it starts at the bottom of the ocean and then it rises up above, and and I thought that was quite cool. And then linking to that, Miss Duffy's thrown in a fact today, and it is that Mount Everest is actually made out of limestone. Like the peak of Mount Everest made out of limestone. So that tells us once upon a time that the top of Mount Everest was once at the bottom of the ocean, sir. That's cool, isn't it?
That's really cool.
That's cool, and that also shows the power of it.
And so why does that tell you that it was once at the bottom of the ocean?
Because limestone is a sedimentary rock, and sedimentary rocks are formed by layers and layers and layers of, especially carbonate rocks, layers and layers and layers of dead plants and animals that have been squished and compressed over time, cemented over time,
cementation and compaction. So
over time, and
that's fascinating. So say that again, because that's a cracker.
The top of Mount Everest is made out of limestone, which tells us that once upon a time, the peak of Mount Everest was once at the bottom of the ocean.
Wow, that's
also doesn't it show you the power of a collision plate boundary as well?
It's incredible.
Yeah,
it really does. Because amazing.
That's the only reason why it's up there. It's cool.
That's really cool. Yeah, so that's a cracking. Well done, Miss Duffy. I like that one a lot. Okay, so finally, weather forecast. Although this is not a weather forecast. CBs, clear blue skies. Do you know what? It is fresh today. It's lovely.
It was. I think it actually made me quite happy.
Well, this is it. The spring vibes are starting to form, aren't they? This is what we need. We need these cold, crisp mornings, because that means we're heading in the right direction for a good summer.
Sunny but cloudy today. With CBs plus clear blues, but a bit no, it's not really clear blues at all, to be honest.
It is right now, though.
It is, yeah. And then tomorrow, sunny at 10 o'clock in the morning when you're doing all your work, sir. Yeah. And then in the evening, when you're still doing all your work, it will be a bit rainy, 70% chance. And then Sunday, wash out, mate.
Is it?
Absolute wash out, drizzling and stuff all day. Monday, drizzle all day. And we didn't shout out the boys, the U9 boys.
Oh,
absolute run of form.
We'll finish it.
It's not a run of form at the moment,
podcast. We'll finish it with them. Go on.
So he won last week.
Yep.
Played Harris City Science Academy on Tuesday. Yep. That was a win and a half. That
was it. 13-2.
14-2. It was on the official Twitter. I'm still hoping for Mayflower.
Yeah.
Next in the quarterfinals, but we'll see. Tough team. And then on Wednesday, when we took the reins against a very, very comfortable 5-3 win. Never in doubt, was it? We
had a bit of shaky moments in that game, but we played well. We ground out results. That's what we do. We grind out podcasts and we grind out results.
Yeah, I just want a big shout out to Ostap, because I think he come on. He
earned
earned his place. Was on the side of that pitch. Wasn't moaning that it was a sub.
No.
And came on. Just looked so happy to be on that football pitch.
It did, I'm glad. That makes me happy.
Yeah, he was in an unfamiliar position, left back, but I'll tell you what, when that boy gets his foot on the ball, he can play. Yeah,
good. I was impressed. He did really well. So, well done. I thought that was a lot of. What time are we on?
12 minutes past.
Beautiful. Right, well done, sir.
Have a long one.
Have a great weekend.
Right, and now this should
actually go. Right.
Yeah, I think so. Right, nice one.
Well done. Yes.
Lovely stuff, sir.
Well done, mate. Right.